On today's episode of Gathering the Kings. So, how does an entrepreneur be open minded, but also protect what they believe is right for their business? Because there's not a lot of people rooting for us.
Am I just being an entrepreneur who's overly optimistic, or am I being real about the cost, the risk?
Or there's a time to strategically have a promotion where you're not making money. But if you don't make sure the numbers make sense and make sure that you're getting value out of your work, you're really stealing from yourself.
One of the things that we start each day with is the idea that we're here to make somebody's day. And so that's kind of our mission at Five Lakes. And in my personal life is, can I make somebody's day today?
You are listening to Gathering the Kings with Chaz Wolfe, featuring fellow 7, 8, and even 9-figure business owners who have real battle scars from business and life, but have prevailed as the king that they are designed to be. We welcome high-performing entrepreneurs to the stage in order to reveal the real of the real on what it takes to build a successful business today. We dissect the good and bad decisions they've made along the way that give a true and accurate picture of the journey of success and how you too can get there. Through this dialogue, you will learn the value of growing your network and surrounding yourself with power players and kings like today's guest. Grab your pen and notebook because we're about to dive in. What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, Gathering the Kings, coming back to you here today. I am your host. And I've got two kings on the king stage. We got double trouble here today. Jared and Paul Smith, my brothers, your brothers. How you guys doing?
Great. Thank
We're
you.
doing great. Thanks for having us today, Chaz.
Absolutely. You know, just for the listener's sake, it's been a minute since we've done, a little double trouble here in the seat here, but I've enjoyed the past ones, and this is going to be extremely fun. You guys have a great business. I love the energy that you guys are already bringing just in our pre-conversation here. So, fellas, tell us what kind of business that you have.
Yeah, we're a coffee company, so we have a few different aspects of actually our business. We started as coffee shops back in 2002. We opened it's 2003, we opened our first coffee shop.
Okay.
And then about a year later, we actually started roasting our own coffee. So now we're coffee roasters. We have our coffee shops. We have company-owned stores, franchise location, and then we do online sales. So we have, different ways of doing it. It's all surrounded or based off of coffee and caffeine.
Yeah. And caffeine. Hey, well, we were just talking a second ago, and Paul had mentioned that you guys have, I think you said an angry coffee.
Yeah. So
what you
the
said?
Angry Bird coffee, it's a highly caffeinated dark roast. We came out with that a couple of years ago. It's our number one seller. It's fantastic.
Oh, okay.
And then recently, so I'm a light roast drinker. Maybe we'll get into that later. Instead of the dark roast, we came out with Happy Brew. So we've got an Angry Brew. And if you feel like you're more of the happy type personality like myself, you like a light roast, we have the Happy Brew highly caffeinated coffees.
Okay. So I can still get highly caffeinated, but I can choose my angry or my happiness, right?
You sure can.
Yep. And then you
'Cause I
can
think-
see that's the Angry Brew logo there on my hat. So,
There you go. So we have literally happy and angry right here on the show with us.
Yeah.
today.
there you go.
Got it.
Well, and I think you actually know who's who now that
Yeah.
you figured that out. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, I got to go back because Jared, you said you have a coffee company. And I love the way that you said company because that's how I say it too. And it's just, I just see you guys as just, down to earth guys that are just figuring out this coffee business. It sounds like you guys are, you already had an amazing success track record, but with one franchise location, online sales, corporate, like you guys are about to just like explode, it sounds like. So I'm excited for some of this growth conversation, some of these decisions I'm sure you guys are having to make. Before we go into like practical stuff, I want to know high level. I'm going to ask you individually here because you guys are obviously individuals. I know you're brothers, probably super close,
Yeah.
but I'm going to guess these answers are going to be pretty different. Maybe some similarities between them. But Paul, I'll start with you. I want to know the deep-seated why. Like, what's the burning desire? Why do you do this? Why are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, why are you winning at life?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we have, and it's probably a common trait with entrepreneurs, we're really persistent. So the persistence is a big part of our success. I think the thing that drives me, other than, creating an atmosphere and a place for people to connect, and then obviously discovering the magic of freshly roasted coffee, the deep part that motivates me is just the opportunity to create something. So We started from scratch with our company, and that was 21 years ago. And just the opportunity to build staff, a customer base, a brand, a logo, that's something I absolutely love. And it gets me motivated and gets me up and at it every day.
Yeah, I love that. I say something about myself in my daily visualization that I'm a builder.
Yeah.
And it sounds like we're similar in that way. I think all entrepreneurs to a degree get excited about creating and building. That's kind
Yeah.
of how we're designed. So I relate to that completely. Before like I've got so many more questions, but I got to give Jared a chance here. Jared, what's your
Yeah.
burning desire? What gets you up in the morning?
That's a great question. I like to say my faith is number one, then my
Love
family,
that.
and then business. And then getting just into that business part of it is, and I think I agree with Paul. We used actually we were in business before coffee, we were builders. And at that point, we were
Sweet.
creating something with our hands. We were out, hammering,
Yeah.
pounding the nails, and I've always just enjoyed that part of it.
Yeah.
And then with this business, we're creating coffee shops. I get to work on the design of new coffee shops. So we're creating something and building in something, and I think trying to build something that's going to last too.
Yeah.
Not just something, business that we're going to be able to hopefully hand down to our children for the future. And then also the opportunity just to build relationships through that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much that I enjoy about it that get me going. So I could
Yeah.
keep talking about that, but I'm sure we'll get more into that detail, that type of stuff as we
Yeah.
go. So
And
Yeah.
one thing
Go ahead.
Jared didn't mention is a deep factor for him is safety. And you can ask him about that later.
Oh, is that the spawn word there? Just safety. Okay, we'll get to that here in a second. Don't let me forget the safety story. What you said there, Jared, was really impactful because there are actually a couple things I want to get practically into one of the questions. But of course, the priority or the order that you have in life, your faith, family, business. I think that order is what a lot of people maybe talk about or think about, but whether they actually live in that order is something completely different. And so maybe we'll get to some of that here in a bit as well. But you said something also that you used to be a builder, an actual builder. You guys were building and on the job site and that type of a thing. And I can tell you right now, because I have a company that builds and I have retail franchises, and they are so different from each other. How in the world did you transition from that to that? Please.
go ahead, Paul.
Well, so we grew up, our father was a builder, and that's where
Okay.
we learned our skills. And
Makes sense.
so in the year, and we had taken breaks. He went off to school and I was out east. But in 2000, we came back to our hometown together and he wanted to start building houses and some spec houses. And so we started actually doing that. And it was just for a couple of years. And a friend had mentioned to us this idea of actually at that time opening a chocolate store. And so we said, hey, we like that idea. We like business. We like, as yourself, we want to invest in things that have value.
Yeah.
And the more we looked at it and discussed it, the more excited we got about doing that and being involved with it. So that's what happened. We actually started out and we started to kind of create this company. And as we talked through it in some of the early stages, we decided that chocolate was just a seasonal thing. And so we wanted to add coffee, which we knew was, and that was still early in the coffee days, was something that was growing. And also we were
Yeah.
passionate coffee drinkers. We weren't coffee snobs at that point, just passionate coffee drinkers.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
so
Angry and
we
happy.
slowly wound down the construction and started building this company. And
Love
and then, like I mentioned, actually, every job we did, Jared was hurting himself, and so we felt like to spare his life, we almost needed to move out of construction.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that like I am getting some smirks and some smiles there, but I'm sure that there's like a truth to that, and that's maybe the angle here because the entire time as you're telling the story, I'm like, okay, I hear you, but like there's just a really that you are either both of you are just either opportunity guys where you heard a chocolate opportunity and
Yeah,
thought, wow, yeah, that sounds awesome because I love opportunity or the widget of business rather than the trade of building. Or was it something deeper? Like, you know what? I see myself, I enjoy this, but physically it's going to take a toll on me. We need to transition. Or was it maybe a mixture of both?
I think it was a mixture of both. I mean, with construction, it's either hot it's too cold, or it's wet, or it's snowing. So there certainly was just this aspect of like, this is something that we can do in a more controlled climate. And so there was that aspect of it, the physical part of it.
Mhm.
And then I think the other thing is, I don't know, I'm just the way I'm wired as a person. I only follow through or try like 1% of the ideas that go through my mind on a monthly basis. Cause I'm always, for some reason, I'm just wired. I'm always thinking about, oh, that's an opportunity. That's an opportunity. Oh, that's a business. Ooh, we
Uh-huh.
could try that. So I'm always thinking about that. And I think just that opportunity to try something new was exciting for me anyways.
Yeah. Well, that's a great point here because I think all entrepreneurs, to a degree, recognize opportunity, right? That's why we're entrepreneurs because we took
Yeah.
the initial opportunity. But what you just said was that you have constant ideas or this constant flow of what about this, what about that, and this fresh thing, which I think a lot of people can relate to. I know I sure can, but eventually that can be cloudy. And you guys have really done well in this one lane. Now you've done several things in that lane. Is that how you've been able to kind of curb that? Is you've stayed in the coffee lane, but we've added online. We stayed in the coffee lane, but we added a franchise. Like is that how you kind of been able to feed that need for new?
I think for me, yeah, I mean, I think of these ideas, but then I get back to work and I've got so much going on. We're either designing a new store, we're thinking about a new way to open a store. Yeah, we're developing new packaging, new products, like the Angry Brew highly caffeinated coffee. That was just something that came to us and we developed that. And that took some time of testing and sending in the coffee to the lab to make sure we had the right amount of caffeine and roasting it and just developing that flavor. So I think overnight, I think of those ideas and then I get back to work and I get busy doing what's at hand. And that keeps me distracted from doing those other ideas. And a lot of the ideas I think about are related to work. So
Sure.
some may not be, maybe they're just hobbies I like doing. And I think of how it could be a business or something. But then typically I just try to focus that on the coffee business.
Yeah, I think it's really, really good insight. I know that it feels natural to you because that's just what you do, but this is a phenomenon with entrepreneurs. And then inside of the entrepreneurial world, there are people like you that it's like just a factory and it just pumps. We use the culture index, and on the culture index, you can, basically you can see someone's ingenuity is really what it's graded as. And most people are pretty linear thinkers. Like, hey, let's just take this thing we've already got. We don't need to change it. Let's just run with it. That's how most people think, even entrepreneurs. And then every once in a while, there's a guy like Jared,
But they crazy like me.
someone that's a little bit crazy. And guess what? I'm in that boat with you as well. And what it does actually is it feeds us to think like that, but we just have to know how to curb it, like you're saying. And also too, we got to put a little space between us and most of our team because it they can't handle. Not that they can't handle us. We cause too many problems, too many like left, right, left, right, left. And it
Right.
exhausts. At least I don't know if this is your experience, but it has been mine. Would you agree with that, or tell us a little bit more there for you?
For me, I mean, I would agree with that because that's certainly a challenge just in the day to day, even with all the stuff that's going on at Five Lakes Coffee, is
Right.
staying focused. What project do I have going on that I need to stay focused, actually get it accomplished versus, my mind's going on to another project
Right.
or another idea, even within Five Lakes Coffee. So yeah, so just staying focused, maybe not distracting my brother so he can get what he's working on done and
Yeah.
not moving on to another project or idea. So yeah.
Yeah. There has to be there has to be a process for ideation, right? Like we got to think about things. Maybe we write them down. We process them a little bit before we take them to anybody, because we know if we start, taking ideas to people, it is a distraction potentially, pretty high potential, but still needed nonetheless for guys like you and
Yeah.
I. So, Paul, what's the flip side of that for you? Like, are you an idea factory as well? Or are you like, crazy brother, and I'm just trying to
Yeah.
like dial things on
Um,
the operation?
I think I'm the same in that
Okay.
regard,
Wow.
but we work well together partially because of that. And like you said, you need a sounding board. And so we have in the past overwhelmed staff or certain staff, especially marketing. They're like, what? You want to do what? But together we can sound things off each other and it works well because we're both into that. And
Yeah.
then, and likewise, really kind of pre-show, we're talking about personalities and each one of us has a different personality. So, and we complement each other very well. And that's been great for our company. And a lot of times people are like, how do you work with your family? And well, we do because we're different personalities, and he's got strengths that I lack and vice versa. So
Yep.
it works really well. And in the early days, let's face it, it's a lot of hard work and there's a lot of miserable times. And so misery loves company. And we've been able to get through some of those things.
Great to have a sounding board, whether it's just the time to complain. I have somebody I can complain to for a few minutes, then it's off my chest, forget about it.
Yeah.
Or if it's an idea, we can bounce it back and forth and come up with an actual idea that's a good idea. Maybe my idea is not very good actually, but by the time I bounce it off Paul, we started in one point and we get to a whole new point just by
turned it into a good
talking and
idea.
bouncing those ideas off each other.
Yeah, that's right. I actually think that you guys have something super special. And it's not because necessarily that it's hard to work with family. It can be. But I just think like what you're saying, you have the ingredients of, obviously working together, either complementing each other, working well together, respect. That's what I've heard probably more than anything, just a mutual respect for this is how you do things, this is how you do things, and this is how we're going to work together. Plus, if one of you is drinking happy coffee, then both of you can't be angry.
That's true.
That's exactly right.
It's hard to be angry when you're drinking a lot of coffee anyway. So,
Well, there's I'm sure there's millions actually that would very much agree with that statement. So maybe that's how we'll title this podcast.
Yeah.
Can't be angry if you're drinking coffee. Okay, so let's transition a little bit to practical inside the business. You guys have grown not only the business in a just a phenomenal way, but you've done it in different ways. You've got the online channel, you've got the physical stores that you guys own. You started to franchise. A lot of different things going on here, and one of those probably would be a lot for a lot of entrepreneurs listening. And you guys have 3 channels plus probably a whole bunch else. So tell me just a really good decision that you've made as building that. Maybe something that's kind of been the domino effect that's led to a lot of the success that you guys have had. What would that be?
Yeah, if I could jump in, I want Jared to tell the story. But we learned, and this is probably a decade ago, that not to become too attached to any one idea or product. And so we had a great product that was holding us back. And
Interesting.
it was extremely difficult to terminate that product. But once we did it, then we learned that it's okay to make those types of decisions.
Yeah.
And when you're focused on how does the business grow, how does it do better, become more efficient, it's made it easier for us to make those types of decisions, having gone through that. And I'm thinking of one initial time, and then we've gone through it multiple times since then. So I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, please, because we're
Story.
over here on the edge of the seat going, wait a second, you had a great product and you got rid of it? Wait, what? Jared, please fill us in on the details.
Yeah. So as we talked, we're a chocolate company right at the very beginning. So when we added the coffee, one of the things we came up with was this mocha that we called, at the time we were Great Lakes Chocolate Company and then Great Lakes Chocolate and Coffee, but we call it the Great Lakes Mocha. And we actually took real chocolate and we put it in the cup and we melted it in there. There was this whole long process. And I mean, it was the premium mocha chocolate drink, delicious. I mean, it was great, but it was difficult to make, and either you made it wrong and it was great, but it was also easy. I mean, make it right and it was great, or
Yeah.
it was also easy to make wrong.
Yeah.
And when we opened one of our stores that really got busy really quick, and we realized, you know what, this drink that we thought was actually, super awesome, and we had an emotional attachment to it, right? We figured it out and came up with a recipe, and we love this drink, and we thought it was what was going to make us famous. We realized that this drink was actually holding us back. And so it may sound simple, but for us, it was a really hard decision and took us quite a while to finally okay, there's this back and forth thing that we talked about where okay, we're ready to just get rid of this drink. And I mean, amazingly, I don't know if it was this, but we instantly got busier when we got rid of that drink.
Yeah, let's talk about that because I can assume some things here, but let's talk practically. You make that decision. Yeah, I could see how that could be hard. It was probably a leader of some degree in sales because that's always difficult to give away money. So you think, right?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's a personal creation. It was this wonderful thing, and you're this emotional attachment to. I can only imagine all the people listening right now going, "Oh my gosh, that was my blah 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 product or my blah 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 service." So you got rid of it. and you said you got busier. Why?
That's a great. I don't know for sure, but I think there were so many things about the drink that was holding us back. We were slower. It was hard to train, our team members on how to make it. So you're slower. If it goes out and it's not done correct, then there's a bad experience that somebody's having.
Right.
And it was more expensive, so it was costly. So we had to charge more. So just a bunch of aspects of that drink that were, I think, holding us back.
And I had a conversation with a customer back then I remember very clearly. And it actually was one of the things that got me on board with Jared, because it was his idea to get rid of that drink. And it was that they would come into our shop for that drink because it's more expensive. And as a treat, they'd come once a week or once a month. Well, they're drinking mochas somewhere else every day. So they didn't even realize we had regular mochas because we emphasized that so much. So once we did away with that, we still have great mochas, just not the melted chocolate. And the price then was competitive. And all of a sudden, I think those people realized as well that, oh, you have what I drink every day. You're not out of price. It's not just a special occasion. And so that was a big part of it too. And certainly there were people that missed it and thought it was a bad decision, but the numbers and the business prove otherwise.
Yeah. I think this is a good example here to kind of almost delineate down retail versus just other businesses, because the number of cups that you have to sell of that product to really make it worth it. Yeah, you were charging more, but it's not like you were charging $500 for a cup of coffee and making this great margin to really cover the slowness or the mistakes or whatever. But when we're talking about maybe construction, okay, so I want to do a $60,000 bathroom versus a $20,000 bathroom. Yeah, there's some different product in there, but a lot of that's going to be expertise and just a better, different home that you're doing it in, a different type of client. And so you can provide a different service and get a different margin. That's like a one-shot deal. And it's like, okay, I'm only going to work with $60,000 bathroom clients because I don't need as many. Well, in a volume business, you can't really do that. Yes, you want to be premium. Okay, fine. But like to be, $6 when everyone else is $1.50 or whatever the example is here. And on top of that, you're slow. And on top of that, the experience is top notch. It just makes it really difficult. So I can see how being more streamlined in a volume-based business, still nice, still premium, still the best cup of coffee I've got, or I want to come back to. It just opened it up, it sounds like, to the real volume of your customers.
And I think the biggest lesson that we learned really was to be willing to let go of some things, because I see businesses or people that own businesses all the time. They become emotionally attached to something that was just because it was their idea. They're emotionally attached to it. So they're not willing to either let go of that idea, or maybe they're not willing to listen to somebody else's advice or bring somebody else in because, man, doggone it, this is my business or this is my product. I developed this. I am not changing this. And they hold on to something that actually is making them fail versus be successful. But I think the biggest lesson I learned is, just being open to change, being open to being wrong. It's okay to be wrong,
Ding, 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 ding.
As much as I think I'm always right, because we all always think we're right,
That's right.
Just being open to the idea that I'm not always right. And there's times to move on from an idea if it's not working.
What about the entrepreneur listening right now who's thinking, well, I was told to protect my dream and don't let people influence me because, I'm the only one that's going to get it done. And, there is truth to that. I'm obviously painting a polarizing picture here, but because what you're saying is true, which is you have to live really life open-handed. The people that I know that live life with closed, gripped hands on money or business or opportunities or ego, everything that you just said, it just stops. Like they're not a flowing conduit, right? When you live open-handed like this or open-minded, it also opens you up to possible, and then now we're over here, negative influence, family members that say I shouldn't be doing this. No, don't get rid of the cup. All of the negative. So how does an entrepreneur be open-minded like you're talking about, Jared, but also protect what they believe is right for their business, because there's not a lot of people rooting for us.
That is the challenge. I mean, I remember my younger self, I was really tight, like competitive. I was like, okay, we're going to keep everything secret and, not gonna let anybody know what we're doing and not gonna listen to anybody. We know what we're doing. We're just going to
Yeah.
do this. And I mean, you need to be smart and you need
Yeah.
to think about, there's reasons people have patents. If you're
Sure.
designing something that needs to be patented because you're going to spend, $1 million developing a product, you've got to protect that. So there's that aspect of it. But then there's just being open to communicating, collaborating. I think there's room for multiple people to be successful, even at the same things. So even though, yeah, we're competing, like, you're in the coffee business, I'm in the coffee business, and we're competing, and I'm not gonna maybe share my exact recipes, but I think we can have open communication. We can actually root for each other to be successful, and not necessarily root against each other. Even though, yeah, we got to compete, we got to advertise and market and get the customers to come in our door. But I think
Yeah.
there's some collaboration. There could be working together. And I think what you're saying is, yeah, there's more. We're going to open up our opportunities, you know, by being more open to that. There's going to be a lot more opportunities. So we
Yeah.
don't have to, fight as hard to keep everything secret, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that you're talking about two mindsets, which one builds on the other. The first is protect and keep, which is very warrior mindset. So it's very survival based, fear based. I gotta go win the battle today. Right. But then eventually at some point you recognize that there's more strategy to the war than just this individual battle, and you become a king really, and you can see things at a different level, whether it's collaboration, whether it's just open-handedness, all of that. And so, I had just really, it makes me think of abundance. And so that's gonna be my next question. Maybe Paul, you can chime in on this one. But what I heard Jared saying is that I just chose to live in abundance, knowing that there's plenty, which, I had a guy on the show here in Kansas City. He's another remodeler, which is where my remodeling company is. I had him on this show and we were talking about him. I didn't mention my show or my company once. And I'm talking about how good of a remodeler he is. And we're talking about his projects and this and that and really getting into it. And later abundance came up for some reason. So I threw that out. And I don't even think he knew that I had a remodeling company because I'm more of a visionary stake in the company. I'm not in a day to day. And I think it even shocked him to know that I've been like literally taking the entire podcast to promote his business when he has a business in my city that literally competes with me. And so what would you say about this, Paul? Like abundance, everything that Jared's given to us here, like open-mindedness, open-handedness.
It's absolutely correct. And it's a lesson that we had to learn. So I think in America, for instance, we have a really individualistic society.
That's right.
And that's certainly how I think we were raised. I was really thinking of myself, number one, and it's through not only this process of business, but through faith, like Jared mentioned early in the beginning. So realizing it's not just me, and I didn't just put myself here to take care of myself, but as you start to see larger responsibilities, family, friends, staff, when you're in business, those things, you start to see that opportunity, community. And so, like you said, with the open-handedness, and that's something I think we've grown into, especially in the last few years in particular, is can we let go of some of these things? Can we give back and give to the people that have supported us, and who have benefited us? And there's something to that in it. It's even biblical, that if you put it out there, and if you sow seed, for instance, right? Maybe I have a handful of seed, but if I'll sow this seed instead of just hanging on to it, I'm going to yield 100 times more, and it's going to benefit not just myself, but my community and those around me and my family. And so it's really, it's a principle to live by. And I wish I would have discovered it when I was, 20 instead of within the last, decade.
Paul, there's so much
Nailed it,
risk
Jared.
in sowing my seed, right? Like I just want to hold on to it. Why,
Yeah.
why are you telling me to put it into the ground?
That's right. But hey, that's where the growth's at.
That's right. Yeah, it can't grow in your hand. And what a lot of people, that hold tight like that don't realize is that the seed won't last forever either. You might think it, it makes you feel safe that it's in your hand, but
Yeah.
it won't last for very long there either. So might as well.
Yeah. I think of one other thing too, Chaz, as we're talking, over the years, I've started to pay attention and notice how many people have actually poured into me, So of course, my parents and then teachers, and then just people in the community that had goodwill towards me and my brother. And you start to see that we wouldn't have even been able to do this without the goodwill and kindness of others who have helped us along the way, who have given us free advice.
Yeah.
Even what you're doing with your podcast, where you're sharing these stories, and so people can hear them and they can contemplate, am I doing this right? How are these people succeeding? And those are lessons we've learned and it makes such a big impact now.
I know if I could go back, to when I was in my early 20s and we were really getting into the business, if I could give myself one piece of advice, I'm sure there's more, but it'd be just to be more open to listening and collaborating and just not holding so tight onto my ideas.
Yeah.
And thinking that I knew everything. And I know that's just part of being young. I see that in my kids, you might not believe it, but I'm a father of 8. And
Whoa, 8. You've never heard
8.
that reaction though. So
yeah, 8 is, I always like to say 8 is great. So,
8 is great. My
9 might
wife
have
and I
been
have
fine,
4.
but-
And so she's like, I think you're at the cap there, bud.
I'll tell her 8's great. You heard it from Jared. So
From the man. Okay. Hey, kings and queens, Chaz Wolfe. I want to talk to you about something that's super important to me. We put a lot of time and effort, we meaning myself and my team, into this podcast, into the content that goes out every single day. And if you have been getting any sort of value or insight from this, we want it to be able to reach other business owners too. So we would love if you would like, comment, share, leave a review, post, share again, all of the things on social media, on all the different platforms, or even on the podcast mediums of Apple and Spotify. We would love to be able to get our content into more hands, more entrepreneurs, so they can grow their business as quick as possible. Together, we are building a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are committed to growing their businesses to new heights. So let's do this. Let's help each other. Let's help each other grow. Okay, well, let's flip the script here, fellas. Let's talk about a bad decision, something that sticks out in your mind that maybe wasn't the greatest hour, but I'm sure you've learned a great lesson.
Oh yeah. So I guess I'll just start.
go ahead.
It was a location. So when we were starting to expand early on, this was clear back in 2008, we were opening what would have been our 3rd location at that time. And the place we were looking at had all the elements we thought would be important. It was near a ball stadium. It was on a highly trafficked road. It was near downtown. There's all these elements that, looking at them individually, we thought, oh, this is fantastic. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But that never fully developed. Of course, we hit 2009 with the economy downturn, which had some impact, but really it was just a bad choice on our part with the location. And it took us a while to realize this location and these elements we thought were beneficial to our company and might be in other spots is not here. And so we nearly went out of business. We ended up closing that location. The landlord didn't want to work with us, wasn't really friendly towards what was going on, even though they were experiencing the same thing themselves.
Yeah.
And so when we quit that location, we had been losing money for 2 or 3 years while we had remained open, more than we could afford to lose. And then we had to supplement somebody's lease after we left who came in behind us. And so we were doing all of that. But what happened, and we went into opening another store that was successful, and that really saved us. But as we went through that process of looking at all the dumb things we had done, investing too much in equipment was one of the things. And then the location, and then of course that mocha that Jared spoke about, we started to see that all these things add up to really terrible ideas, and we weren't focused on the numbers as well as we should have been. So our P&L, we knew we had good cash flow, and so we were able to get through these things, and we just figured we'd make money, at some point magically. I don't know, but really that's when we started dialing in at that point also to the numbers and really looking at that. Like, those are so important. Is this profitable? Am I just being an entrepreneur who's overly optimistic, or am I being real about the cost and the risk? And so that moment in time, and it was probably a year-long process, was really our schooling. So we learned the numbers matter, your decisions matter, the risk to reward ratio matters. And so we were able to really tighten up a lot of our systems, processes, and get rid of the fluff, which is what you need to do to run a profitable, successful business, not only to benefit ourselves, but our staff and our community.
Yeah, you did a great job there of explaining the process. And even though it led to a bad decision, and then the list of things that you learned, I think that was a great explanation. On the front end, it's not like you weren't calculated. You obviously talked about, we looked at the area, we thought we had it all together.
Yeah.
But what I also heard maybe underneath that, and maybe this is my own story projecting onto you, so tell me if I'm wrong, but was there any ego in we got to get the third location open or we got to
Oh,
hurry up
yeah.
quick and grow, right? And so some of the push, like we oversaw some things really, which means is that we kind of just looked past it because we wanted to hurry up and get it open. Is there any of
Yeah.
that in there at all?
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, no, and I was thinking, one of the things is part of having the entrepreneurial spirit and having all those ideas, like we're always wanting to be bigger than we are.
Right.
I guess in a sense, we're just always wanting to expand, do more, 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 more. And so I think that can be a mistake. Like you talked earlier about like getting out of focus. Like because we want to grow and we're excited about our business and we want to get bigger and we want to add more stores and more employees. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves. We didn't take a close look at the numbers. We're just like, okay, let's get a store open.
Yeah.
So I think certainly ego can play a part in that. And then for me, it's just wanting to expand, wanting to do more, wanting to build something that is bigger and better. And then you try to do it too fast. And
Yeah.
I know Paul kind of still, I was going to talk about the numbers, but I remember when I was working in construction for another gentleman before Paul and I got together, I don't remember the conversation exactly, but he said, yeah, I don't worry about making money. I'm just working. And that always stuck with me. Yeah, but you can work yourself to death.
Yeah.
If you're not making money, you're actually stealing from if you have a family,
That's right.
because now you're working all the time, but you're not really providing for your family.
Yeah.
So that's one thing is there's times to not make a profit. There's times where you're giving to somebody or something and that's okay. Or there's a time to strategically have a promotion where you're not making money. But if you don't make sure the numbers make sense and make sure that you're getting value out of your work, you're really stealing from yourself. And not only that, but if you have people you're responsible, and usually we do eventually, either your wife, your kids,
Oh, yeah.
your family, your extended family, if you want to be able to help people out, you got to make sure that you're making money and being profitable, because otherwise you're just going to be striving and working hard, and you're not going to be able to spend that time with your family, provide for their needs and stuff like that. So there's an
Yeah.
important part of being proud. Sometimes people talk bad about business, like, oh, you're just worried about profit. Well, if we don't make profit, we can't give our employees raises. We can't give them new equipment that they can be faster and enjoy their job better.
Yeah. That's
I
right.
can't provide a house for my family. And then I've got to strive, and I can't take that time to spend with my kids as they're growing up too. So
Yeah.
profitability is super important.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of factors that go into that no business owner should be ashamed of making profit because we're the ones that started it, put our neck on the line, whatever. And any employee, just like when you said you worked for a gentleman, I've worked for people, and they have an opportunity, just like we did, to go do it yourself. And man, there's an uphill that comes with that. But if they're ones like us, then they should go do that, and they'll experience the same up and downs that we have, and the reward comes with that journey. So I appreciate the authenticity there. The vulnerability of telling you that you made some mistakes closing a location. I'm sure that cost you a ton of money. I know that when I had to close a location, it cost a lot of money, and probably more of an ego hit than anything. Really, it was an ego to start it, an ego hit to close it. But one of the greatest lessons, I think, for both of our stories that we can share now, because it really is just a bump in the road. Like, yeah, in the moment, it felt like everything was falling down. Paul said you guys almost went out of business. I feel the same way. But you look back on it now, you're like, oh, well, I don't want that to happen again.
No.
But it's just a little bump in the road. So you mentioned family. Obviously, you have 8 kids. I want you guys to both answer this question again and individually here. But I am just a huge believer that, well, now I always said it early, but now I know because I believe it because I'm living it, that I can obsess over my family and my business, or, my businesses and my family, my kids, my wife. If you've got other things in your life that are important, I find myself plenty busy with all my businesses, my wife, and my kids. But the point here is I'm trying to make is that a lot of times people tip the balance and they go, well, it has to be balanced. And I'm like, not a fan of that word. I don't actually think it exists. I think obsession exists or intention. And that's what it sounds like that you guys are doing. But give us some practical things on how you're running a big old business. You're on a podcast, you got 8 kids, and then Paul followed up with an answer of your own.
Well, that's a great question. I think there's seasons of, where you're just working. There's going to be a season where like I'm maybe more focused on my business. Maybe there's like a 3-month season where we're opening a new store. I know I'm going to work hard for 3 months, but I have to, like you said, I have to be intentional at some point to say, okay, we've got this going. Now I'm going to step back, let this thing roll, and make sure that I'm giving my family time. So it's not 100% going to be balanced all the time, but we have to be intentional. Otherwise, it would be easy to, depending on your personality, either work too hard because you're always working at your business, you're always pushing that. Or if you have a personality that's maybe lazy, you don't work hard enough and your business doesn't succeed because
Right.
there are seasons where, it is time to get to the grinding stone, work really hard, work through this time as we get this store open or open a new roastery or whatever your business is. But just not letting that continue forever because you can get caught up in that and then your family suffers or your personal time, your health might suffer because you're not taking time to exercise, or eat healthy or whatever those aspects are. So
Yeah. You gave in some other dimensions there. For Paul, set you up with the same question here, but really it's, business and finance, family and marriage, spirituality. We've all talked about faith here today, health and mental health, physical health, and lifestyle, right? And that doesn't have to necessarily mean material things, but it could also mean freedom. So Paul, how are you doing all these things all at once?
Yeah. Well, I think you both have actually hit on the key word there is being intentional. So there are times when we really work hard. And in the early days, that was for an extended period of time. Now it's like spurts. And so it's important that our wives were all in on this venture. We couldn't have done it without them. And they supported us in that and really allowed us to create what we've created. But even now today, I think that's always kind of a little bit of a challenge. Sometimes I look at, the billionaires and I'm like, oh, well, what if I worked a little harder? What if I did this? But then I ask myself, what's the cost? Where I want to build this thing as big as possible. And actually we're starting to focus in the next couple of months on franchising. And we'll be targeting Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana before we go out further.
Yeah.
So we're working on growing it into a bigger business than it is right now. But yeah, how do I be intentional about, I say to myself, I don't have to become a billionaire. In fact, I don't expect to, just put that out there, but I don't want to focus all my intention on gaining wealth or just the success of my business, because I do want to, this life is fleeting. And I realize that more every day. You probably notice I got white hair now. It wasn't white when we started this. And so as you kind of run into your mortality and you understand life is flying by all of us, I do want to be able to enjoy our work. Why do we work? And not only to create something, but so we can support a family, so we can spend time with that family. And when it's all done and said, at some point I'll either retire or just die. And so then what's my legacy? Is it just this company? I hope not. I hope it's, that I pass something along to my kids, my community, my family, not just financially, but of myself and spiritually as well. And so it is, I think, just being intentional, like you said, Chaz.
Yeah. I think that there's a whole army of entrepreneurs that feel very much like this.
Yeah.
It's a big reason why Gathering the Kings started off originally as a mastermind group, but then even just the podcast, like we get people that chime in all the time, small businesses just getting started or guys that are doing hundreds of millions. And it's like, you don't have to be, the billionaire in your example, that's only business and nothing else. There actually is a way for you to be able to have all of the dimensions, winning in all dimensions. But I think the summary here for all of us is that we're not done. Like, even though we feel like we're doing it pretty good, there's definitely a way to still do it better. There's definitely still more time to spend with the family and create more memories and legacy and community. I love that word. But it's like also in the business and doing those things all together at the same time. It's like, no, we're going up, baby. Like, we're grateful, but we're not done. That's for sure.
That's right.
I got a question for you both. Last one to wrap it up here. Paul, I'm going to go with you first. I want to
Okay.
know if you had the opportunity to whisper in the younger Paul's ear,
Yeah.
what would you tell him?
I would tell him to remember that it's not about him and to enjoy what he's been given and also what I'm created for or what he's created for, right? I'm talking to my younger self. So to
Yeah.
just enjoy those things and to have big picture mentality, not focused on here and now, but on a lifetime and beyond. I mean, I look out and I see, we're all going to enter eternity at some point. What does that mean? I want to consider that and think about that. And so I want to remind my young self not to fall in the traps of just this illusion of here and now, but there's a lot of good things ahead and to be prepared for those, to consider those and to listen to others as well.
What would you tell the younger Paul that he was designed for?
Well, I'm designed to bring glory to God. I mean, I believe that's my purpose. And so for me, it's not only my family life, but in my business life. I was created for the marketplace. I absolutely love it. I love business. I love the numbers of business. I love growing the business and encouraging people. And that's a big part of our business is building relationships to encourage people. One of the things that we start each day with is the idea that we're here to make somebody's day. And so that's kind of our mission at Five Lakes. And in my personal life is, can I make somebody's day today? And when I do, it's great for them. That's what it's all about. It's loving my neighbor. It's also
Love that.
fulfilling to myself.
Yeah, such a great answer. Appreciate that. What would you tell the younger Jared if you had a chance to whisper in his ear?
I would, Paul had a great answer. So I don't want to just copy his answer, but one would be just to be more open to listening to, especially people that had gone through business. It's really easy as a young guy to just think I know more. I see this with my kids, but I know more than, maybe somebody who's been in business for 30 years because they're older. So just being more open to listening to the wisdom of those people that live life and experience those things. And then second, maybe would be to just keep my eyes more open to the people around me and be more intentional about, as Paul said, making somebody's day is what we love to do at Five Lakes Coffee. And we do that often it's just in a small way. And it might just be for a quick moment in time with a fresh cup of roasted coffee, but just being more intentional and noticing people and maybe slowing down because it's really easy to be busy and about business and taking that moment, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes, to be more intentional about making somebody's day in a little way or spending some time with those people that might have something going on in their life that they just need somebody to listen or talk to.
Yeah, love that. Well, you guys have both been incredible here today. Amazing insights. Love the brotherly dynamic here. How can the listeners find you guys individually as entrepreneurs? They just want to maybe connect, or of course, give us where we can find this amazing coffee, specifically if you are drawn to this angry, high caffeinated, or this happy, maybe joyful coffee. I want them to be able to find both.
I'd start with fivelakes.com. That's our website, and that's spelled out. You'll be able to order coffee online that's roasted to order, shipped to you within 24 hours of being roasted.
Wow.
So wherever you're at in the United States, we ship, I think we ship to all states?
All 48
All
contiguous.
48, yeah.
There you go.
And then on the website, you can find our 8 locations. So if you're in Michigan or Northern Indiana, you can actually find our locations. We're on Instagram. I believe it's at Five Lakes Coffee. Same thing for Facebook.
Okay.
We have a TikTok also. And then I think we're both on LinkedIn as individuals. So you can look for us on LinkedIn as individuals.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things that we do like to do and kind of what you're talking about, Chaz, is just connecting with people, not only learning. We've had the opportunity now over the last few years to meet people that are way beyond us in business and get their insights. So if we're able to do that for somebody starting out, we'd like to take those opportunities as well. And they can just contact us at fivelakes.com. So if they're on the website, they email there, that all gets passed to us. And that's
Love it.
going to be the quickest and easy way is through the website, and we'll reach back out to them.
Perfect. And in the meantime, we'll put all that in the show notes as well as those links to grab that incredible coffee. Thank you both for being here and giving the insights. You've been a blessing, but also just a strategic and maybe catalyst for somebody listening here today to learn and grow in their own journey. So again, thank you for being here. Blessings to your families and all that
Likewise.
you're doing in the
Yes.
coffee business. Thanks.
Thank you, Chaz. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Gathering the Kings today. I hope that you were able to pull out a few nuggets to go apply into your business right away. More importantly, though, I hope that you're realizing that it takes more to be successful than just being by yourself, doing it all on your own, carrying the weight all by yourself. What I have realized, not only in my own journey from multiple businesses and multiple different industries, and now interviewing over 200 or 300 other very successful 7, 8, and 9-figure business owners, is that it's tough to do it alone. And so Gathering the Kings exists to bring together successful entrepreneurs. In fact, we are putting together 1,000 kings, specifically who are grateful but not done. We're intentionally assembling kings who fight tooth and nail for their business, family, and communities. And here's what we believe, that in the pursuit of excellence in those areas, that it ignites within us the responsibility to govern power and forge a lasting legacy. So if that relates and resonates with you, and you know that you need people around you, sharp, qualified, other very successful business owners, I want you to go to gatheringthekings.com. I want you to take a look at what we're doing and see if it makes sense for you to be part of our pursuit to 1,000 kings. Talk soon.